As unhappiness, loneliness and distrust surge in Australian workplaces, the latest Employee Communication Impact Report of this year urges executives to focus on authentic, meaningful communication in the coming year. For more, I'm joined by David Burnand from Staffbase. Good to see you.
Hi, nice to be here.
I think there'll be a lot of employers who say, I want to be authentic, but I might get in trouble if I am. Is that becoming worse, do you think?
I think that organisations are battling on many fronts, I would say. So, they have, certainly there is this desire, of course, to be authentic. At the same time, I think Australian business right now is finding itself in a position where increasingly the other pressure is really on productivity. So, making space for leaders to be authentic is really important, but sometimes it gets lost. With the pressures and desire to drive productivity, and also, of course, just being candid, it's like sometimes some fear about what the fallout might be if you are authentic.
Yes, well, there's a lot of HR managers that warn bosses, don't say anything, be as far back as you can, don't be truthful, don't be honest. That can, of course, make things work. Talk to us about, I guess, some of the key findings of that employee survey.
Yeah, we think we hear that sometimes ourselves, but when you look at the data actually shows that in Australia right now, today in the workplace, almost half of people in the workplace will be feeling lonely to some degree, which we thought was pretty
including the boss.
Including the boss, exactly, including the boss, which we found pretty astounding. But the flip side of this is that actually, why do they feel lonely? People typically feel lonely because they don't feel connected to their organizations, and you might think, oh, well, that's fluffy, it's kind of nice to have, but actually when you look at the economic data that sits behind that, those self-same workers are 23% more likely to be looking for a new job, and they are twice as likely as those who don't feel lonely to have declared themselves less productive. So,
how important is communication in the workplace, do you think?
Massively. I mean, you see the gap. This study also showed that we see a huge gap between those people who feel that their communications are excellent. Over 60+% of those people believe that actually they don't have these feelings of loneliness. Whereas if people rate them as poor, then you're right at the other end of the extreme. So I think there was a 38% gap.
Yeah, well, I saw another report that suggested that Australian small business owners, 50% are feeling highly stressed at the moment. Yeah. That no doubt means that they are worried. That worry sets through the rest of the business. Communication can break down as a result. Relationships can break down as a result as well. Do you think that in order to focus on how people are feeling in the workplace, you just have to look at economic data, or is it more than that?
I think it's a little bit more than that, and I think as well, you have to think about there are different ways in which you can address this issue as well. We found in our study that frontline leaders are really important in the overall scheme of addressing that, but also technological solutions are also really important as well. And there you've kind of got a paradox as well, because for many organizations, for many individuals, we're increasingly engaging with AI as well. Which can be both a help and a hindrance.
It's an unsettling time, isn't it?
I think so, but I also think that for many organizations, if they harness AI in the right way, and certainly you can use it in your communications to make communication more personalized, to actually make it more human as well. We actually have some technology at the moment that's actually providing personalized podcasts for employees. Wow. And that's kind of, actually when you listen to it, that it's AI, but at the same time it is kind of magical, and you definitely feel more connected when you're listening to it to your organization. It's a different way to engage people. And we think that if organizations are able to harness AI in the right way, then it doesn't necessarily have to be a negative, and certainly can actually increase connection between companies and their people.
That's a great way of looking at it, and a different way than what most people say and probably feel as well. David, obviously we're in a global workplace and a global economy at the moment. The issues that Australia faces, particularly when it comes to loneliness in jobs, in workplaces, how does it compare to what's being seen in the UK, in other countries that are similar to Australia?
Well, I think, if I compare it to the UK, to Germany, to the US, where we also did this study, Australia is kind of broadly similar, but what I would say is that in Australia there is a heavy focus obviously on frontline workers, maybe a slightly higher focus on frontline workers because of some of the industries here compared to some of those other markets. And actually, if you look at frontline workers, it's frontline workers who often feel most disconnected from their organizations, and where organizations actually have the most to gain by using the right technology and by leveraging those frontline managers to ensure that people have information, answers, and data passed to them that help them to connect with the brands that they're representing, because ultimately they're the face of your company, right?
Yes, very much so. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much, David.
Thank you.